Bonjour! So this presentation is going to look at planning for early level French. And throughout the presentation, we will touch on frameworks that are available for planning for early level and guidelines around about early years and P1, some approaches that you can take around about how you would organise your learning, what your learning and teaching might look like, the language that might be involved for early level French, some support resources that are out there, and more info and support to help you. So we'll start by looking at the national guidelines and frameworks around about early level languages. And there aren't actually any E's and O's for modern languages at early levels. So the E's and O's start at first level. But what you could look at this as you're kind of developing those skills working up to first level. And within the 1+2 P1 guidance, which is on Education's website, and I've referenced the direct link to that document in the slide notes for this slide, there is this statement around about the expectations for early level and what you're looking for the children to be able to do. And these kind of 4 headers are actually really helpful in terms of framing your thinking around about the kinds of things you should be developing in languages learning for early level. So the 4 areas are then understanding classroom instructions. So that really comes down to your use of the language and embedding that within your kind of classroom practice, your daily routines. Taking part in simple conversations, so you're looking for the children to be building up the skills to be able to ask and answer questions and kind of beginning to develop the skills around about when they should listen, when they should ask, maybe introducing a conversation, so bonjour, finishing it with au revoir, and then enjoying listening to stories, songs and poems. And this is really important in terms of exposure to the language, and everything around about early level is built around about oral skills, so listening, talking, and exposure to the language and listening to lots of the language, and particularly through native speaker exposure, is a really important part of kind of shaping your engagement with the language, of allowing your ear to develop a little bit. And it's incredible how much children can actually take on just through listening. And lastly, we have appreciate some cultural differences. So beginning to develop a bit of an awareness about the different cultures, different countries, as you would be doing through your learning in early level anyway. So moving on then to think about the kinds of things that you might be doing as part of early level learning in languages. So we've talked a little bit about this already. So focusing on exposure to languages, and like I said previously, that's just really important, the sounds of different languages and beyond French. So the focus for this presentation is really about French, but if you have multilingual learners in your classroom, in your school community, then it's perfect to engage with this and see how you can bring that into your classroom as well. You might want to have different ways of saying hello, for example, in different languages. If you have Polish speakers or Urdu speakers or whatever it might be, you might want to bring in their languages. You might want to invite their parents in to let them read a story to the children and just let them hear different languages as well. And it's really good just for having that exposure to different tongues, different cultures, different ways of talking, different use of language. Like I said previously, lots of songs, stories, rhymes, games, playing with the sounds of language. And really it's about little and often, so that kind of drip effect. So short inputs on a regular basis, that they're getting exposure to it little and often. And then building into your daily routine, so your kind of morning, end of day, and again that's where you would bring in your classroom instructions, so your greetings. It might be you're talking about kind of routines for taking your coat off, and it's quite good if you can establish a routine for yourself as well, so that you're building that up bit by bit as well over time. Using simple classroom instructions, so écoutez, listen, regardez, look, asseyez-vous, sit down, levez-vous, stand up, and we'll have a little bit of a look at these in more detail. And then introducing language learning through games, and again we'll have a little bit more of a look at this. I'll give you some examples of things you can do. And using puppets to introduce a French speaking character is a really nice way of being able to bring the culture in, bring the language in a way which really appeals to the children. So we're going to start by looking at some of the language you might use as part of your daily routines then. And I've got a set of language flashcards here with quite a lot of different language in them. And you might not want to use all of these, but what I would recommend would be to maybe almost scripting out your day to start with and then building that up a little bit over time. So the first starting place for all of this is, of course, bonjour. Bonjour. And sometimes bonjour seems like such a simple word, but it can be one of these ones that people slightly worry about the pronunciation of it. So it's bonjour. Bonjour. But I wouldn't worry too much if you don't pronounce it absolutely correctly either. You know, a nice big bonjour is just as good. Okay, so bonjour, bonjour. And then you can extend this to hello everybody. So this is a really useful little phrase, this tout le monde, tout le monde. And the T here at the end of the tout is silent. So bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour tout le monde. Hello everybody. And then if you wanted to use it for boys and girls, you could add in bonjour les garçons. Bonjour les garçons. Bonjour les garçons. Bonjour les garçons. And you'll maybe see sometimes you get this little cedilla here, so the little squiggle underneath the C. And what that means in French is that it gives it an S sound. So bonjour les garçons. Okay, so it creates that S sound. You might see it as well in the word français. Okay, so when you see that squiggle underneath, it means it S's the C. So, bonjour les garçons. Bonjour les garçons. And then we have bonjour les filles. Les filles. Bonjour les filles. Bonjour les garçons. Bonjour les filles. And these are just ways that you can extend your use of bonjour. So you might start off with bonjour. You might bring in bonjour les garçons, bonjour les filles. You might then move it on to bonjour tout le monde. Or you might use it for bonjour les enfants. Bonjour les enfants. Hello children. Bonjour les enfants. Okay? And your en in French, on, and your an, on. So enfant. And your ts is silent. It's silent here. So enfant. And of course, which is really similar to the word in English, infants. Infants, so the same word origins. So bonjour les enfants, bonjour les enfants. And then they can begin to respond to you as well. So bonjour madame, or bonjour monsieur, bonjour monsieur. Super. And then when your children arrive at the class to invite them in, you just use the word entrez. Entrez. And we've already seen with the en that it's that on sound. So entrez. And the ez is something we'll see a lot here because this is the ending for your group instructions. So for your verbs when it's a group instruction. So it's this ez ending you'll see a lot for your instructions. So entrez. 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 Bravo. And that means enter. Entrez. And then we have how you would say to hang up your coats. So if we're thinking about this in terms of scripting out your day, and then you've got your bonjour, entrez, and then you might want to ask the children to hang up their coats. So accrochez les manteaux. 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 S'il vous plaît. S'il vous plaît. So s'il vous plaît, of course, is please. Accrochez les manteaux, s'il vous plaît. Accrochez les manteaux, s'il vous plaît. So then we have lavez-vous les mains. Lavez-vous les mains. And this means wash your hands. Lavez-vous les mains. Lavez-vous les mains. Lavez-vous les mains. Lavez-vous, lavez-vous, lavez-vous les mains. Okay, so you can use this as part of your routines. Like I say, this is something we have to do quite a lot at the moment. And using a little song to go along with it is a really good way to help you to remember it and also to encourage the children to sing it, to join in with singing it as well. Lavez-vous les mains, lavez-vous les mains, lavez-vous, lavez-vous, lavez-vous les mains. And I don't know how many times that takes to do that. That makes 20 seconds, but you could do it as many times as you need to have your full 20 seconds for hand washing as well. So lavez-vous les mains. And when we're using les mains, there are lots of things we talk about in classes with les mains. So another useful phrase is taper des mains. Taper des mains. Taper des mains. Taper des mains. And we have tenez-vous la main. Tenez-vous la main. Hold hands. Tenez-vous la main. Tenez-vous la main. And then a really nice simple instruction that you can accompany with a gesture. And it's always really good to accompany your instructions with gestures where you can. So, asseyez-vous, 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 sit down, asseyez-vous. And you can kind of gesture downwards when you do that. So, and always make the sound go downwards as well. So, asseyez-vous. So it's almost calming. Asseyez-vous. And if you want to extend this, then you can say asseyez-vous en cercle. Asseyez-vous en cercle. So sit down in a circle. Asseyez-vous en cercle. Or asseyez-vous au tapis. Asseyez-vous au tapis. And au tapis means on the carpet. Asseyez-vous au tapis. Asseyez-vous au tapis. Tapis. And then the opposite of asseyez-vous, we've got levez-vous. Levez-vous, so stand up. So again, accompany that with a gesture, so gesturing upwards and making your voice go up at the same time. So levez-vous. Levez-vous. And then for silence, quiet, so silence, s'il vous plaît. Silence. S'il vous plaît. And you might want to follow that with écoutez. Listen. Écoutez. Écoutez. And you'll see this oo sound quite often in French words. It's one that comes up a lot. We see it in words like rouge, for example. Okay? So écoutez. 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 So listen. And to make that listen, please, it would be écoutez, s'il vous plaît. Écoutez, s'il vous plaît. Or, regardez. Regardez. With a nice r. Really are. Regardez. And again, we hear this EZ sound to A. Regardez. And you can change this so you can say, look at me. So the way you do that is just put moi on the end. It's a word that quite a lot of us know already from French. So, regardez-moi. Look at me. Regardez-moi, s'il vous plaît. Regardez-moi. Regardez-moi. And if you want to say listen to me, you would just say écoutez-moi. Écoutez-moi. So it's listen me. Look me. Regardez-moi. Écoutez-moi, s'il vous plaît. Regardez-moi, s'il vous plaît. And a couple of nice instructions that we can use for games as well, which is really useful. So, ouvrez les yeux. Ouvrez les yeux. Open your eyes. Ouvrez les yeux. And then the opposite of that, fermez les yeux. Fermez les yeux. Ouvrez les yeux. Fermez les yeux. Really useful wee phrases. And as we make our way up through towards P1 into P1, you might want to also introduce on fait l'appel. On fait l'appel, which means we'll take the register. On fait l'appel. On fait l'appel. Bonjour les filles. Bonjour les garçons. Bonjour les enfants. On fait l'appel. On fait l'appel. And you have two different responses to this, whether you're a boy or a girl. So for boys, they would say présent, présent. And your E accent here, so that's got a sort of A sound, A, and it almost sounds like it's going upwards, so présent. And the T at the end is silent, okay, so présent. And for the girls, présente. So you hear the T on the end when it's followed by an E. And it's quite a good way for introducing just that there's a difference between masculine and feminine in French, at that early stage. So it's quite good to introduce that from around about P1, that they would either say présent or présente. Présent, présente. And likewise, if it was somebody who was absent, they would say for a boy, absent, with the on sound and the T silent, and for a girl, absente. So we hear the E, the T on the end of it. So absent, absente. Super. So just to review then a little bit about using your classroom language, which is of course one of those key learning outcomes that is stipulated within the Education Scotland document around about P1 planning for 1+2. So the first thing to say about it is, you know, just understanding the point of this is it's actually so beneficial for young people, for children. It maximises learning opportunities. So there's a lot of things that you could be saying in English, but giving them the opportunity to hear it in French or a different language, it just maximises their learning throughout the school day. And it normalises the use of languages other than English. And I think in terms of modelling that for the children, it's really important that, you know, this is just something that we all do. We all engage with and speak other languages. It's also really important in terms of your multilingual children in your class, you know, modelling to them that it's good to be multilingual, it's good to use other languages, and this is something we should engage with, celebrate, and be proud of. And just exposing the children to new language and words is really important in terms of their learning. Repetition of new language is everything in terms of learning. So, you know, the more they hear it and from the earlier stages, the more confident they'll feel about using it themselves as they get older. And when you're looking to do this, I think one of the hardest things with this is actually just remembering to actually use it. So build it into your planning, build it up day by a little bit at a time. And you might want to introduce a new phrase in every week, every 2 weeks, but keep it pacey enough that you actually don't lose momentum for yourself. So keep it that you're actually introducing it regularly enough so that it doesn't actually just drop off the edge. And like I said previously, you know, try to accompany things with gestures, keep those consistent, and that acts as an aid memoir for you and also for the children, and encourages them to join in. They'll join in with the actions and they'll just join in of their own accord eventually with the language as well. But encourage them to do that. You know, using kind of sing-song ways, rhymes, really helps with their repetition and recall about these things. And if it helps you, keep a little language bank or a word bank on your desk so you can, or displayed near your desk or somewhere so you can actually use it to refer back to. You might want to start a wee word wall for yourself as well, and you could show that to the children. Even though everything's oral, it doesn't mean to say that they don't have to see the words. They might not necessarily be reading them, but they can see them. And have fun with it. You know, give yourself an opportunity to be creative with this. How can you present this to the children as we're going to be bringing some French into the class? Who's doing that with you? You know, are you using a puppet? Is there a little elf that's helping you? Where are you getting these French words from? Where are they arriving from? So be creative and just have some fun with it. So the next area we're going to look at then is about listening to songs, stories and poems. And like I say, that exposure to the language is so important in terms of just giving the children the opportunity to really begin to develop their ear and to hear different language that they're not already familiar with. It's quite incredible to watch and to see how much language children can pick up from things like cartoons. I had suggested this cartoon, L'Introtro, to my brother and his wife for their wee boy, because when he was getting his nappy changed, they used to put a little video on YouTube for him. And I'd said to him, well, look, why don't you show him a wee French video and he might just start to pick up a bit of the language. Well, what's been incredible about this is that's all they did. They just put the wee video on for him, where it's just a 3-minute video whilst he was getting his nappy changed to keep him quiet. But he actually started to speak a little bit of French himself just from doing this. So he now loves this wee character of Trotro, who's a wee donkey, so L'Introtro, and his family, and he can say maman, papa, talks about his wee sister, sa sœur, and says bonjour himself. And this is just from watching this video clip. So it's incredible to see just how much the children can pick up. And when they hear the song for these things all the time, they'll eventually start to join in with this as well. So this is a really good example of a kind of easy to follow, identifiable cartoon with a character who children can just watch and listen to, and you don't need to do anything. Just let them watch it and listen to it. That's all you really need to do. If you're looking for stories, the French Institute actually do a Heure du Conte, so a storytelling hour every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, and this is something they started in lockdown and they've continued to do. So their storyteller, the lady who does their reading sessions for them, she does a live reading of a book every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, and it is recorded on their YouTube channel. And if you click on the picture in this video, that'll take you to the channel so you can watch it. But it's worth joining in with and checking out. Similarly to Trotro, to L'Introtro, these little Choupie cartoons are also very good. A cute little character, nice French in it, really nice themes as well. So it's he goes on his bike, or he goes to school, or he goes to the canteen. Really easy to follow, actually. Just follow the story, and again, just watching them listen and join in with the story. And these are all on YouTube. These are the official channels, and they have loads and loads of videos on them that you can watch. And for both of these, they also have a series of books that are available, and it's actually quite nice to have some language books in your class where the children can just go and pick them up and look at them, and you know, they will engage with them, and especially if they're used to seeing the characters as well through videos and cartoons. So to support with developing songs and rhymes, we have also produced a short package with some guidance for early years with some examples of songs and poems. And this includes some examples of just short nursery rhymes, songs that you could use with your class, and things that you might know in English with the French versions of it. And then we'll have the French in the pack with the English translation. So we'll maybe just look at this example first of all. So this is enrouler le fil. Enrouler le fil. So that's wind your bobbin up, I think, in English. So enrouler le fil. So I think you know the action, so you sort of roll your hands and then roll them the other way. Étire, so pull and pull, so pull in the threads. So we'll go through this together. So enrouler, dérouler le fil, étire, étire, étape, tape, tape. Qui tient le bon bout de notre bobinette, étire, étire, et saute, saute, saute. Ok? Enrouler le fil, enrouler le fil, et dérouler le fil. Étire, étire, et tape, tape, tape. Qui tient le bon bout. So that's qui. So qui is almost like a key in your door. So qui tient le bon bout. Le bon bout. It's quite boo 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 boo. Le bon bout. Qui tient le bon bout de notre bobinette. Étire, étire, et saute, saute, saute. Okay, super. So that's one example, but we've got lots of different examples of songs within that and rhymes. And to support with this, we've recorded them into a early level language and song pack. So you've got them recorded for you as well. So we'll just look at another example then. So this one's tape, tape, petite main. So a little bit like we said, tape des mains is clap your hands. So tape, tape, petite main. So clap, clap, little hands. And the T for petite, so we hear it because it's T-E, so that means small. So clap, clap, small hands. Tape, tape, petite main. And then the next bit, tourne, tourne, joli moulin. So this means turn, turn, pretty windmill. Tourne, tourne, joli moulin. And you can sort of turn your arms when you do that. So tourne, tourne, joli moulin. And then we've got nage, nage, petit poisson. So swim, swim, little fish. Nage, nage, petit poisson. So nage, nage, petit poisson. And then the last bit, vole, vole, petit oiseau. So fly, fly, little bird. Vole, vole, petit oiseau. And you've got the translations for these as well in your pack, in the song pack. So, coming on then to think about culture. So we've looked at classroom instructions, we've looked at songs and rhymes, and now thinking a little bit about culture and thinking about what you could do or what you already do to develop culture as part of your early learning. So some of the ideas that I just came up with, so food is a great way to introduce culture. Festivals, we've talked about music a little bit already. You might want to create a little French zone in your learning space in your classroom, so somewhere that's particularly French, or that really brings in that idea that they're going to France as well. Exploring maps, so beginning to look at maps and identifying where different countries are. Stories we've talked a little bit about as well, and songs, listening to the music from different countries, and cartoons can be a really effective way of bringing in a little bit of culture as well. And when we're thinking about culture, we've talked a little bit about songs already, but the songs that you find that are in the language pack that we put together, and this channel here, Comptines et Chansons, these are traditional French nursery rhymes, songs. So it's a really good way to bring in that, something that's actually really authentic. So lots and lots and lots of great French nursery rhymes. So this is worth having a look at, this channel here, Comptines et Chansons on YouTube. And the BBC have a wee video series about Barnaby Bear. And it's quite a nice way to introduce the idea of going to France, so showing them what it's like in France. And this wee bear goes off to France and visits different places and meets children there, and they take him around the market and things like that. So it's worth having a little look at these and then using that to introduce the idea of going to a different country with your classes as well. And then, of course, festivals, and there's loads of really nice stuff you can do around about festivals, but just bringing in the greetings, I think, is a really good way for early years. So things like Joyeux Noël or Easter, Joyeuse Pâques. So just using a little bit of that, maybe learning a French Christmas song as well. And don't worry too much about the language sometimes in songs with children. They really just pick it up receptively, so they'll listen and they'll join in. And even if it's stuff that's quite challenging, they don't think about it. They just copy what they're hearing. So you can do some really nice little French Christmas carols with them. So moving on then to think about specific discrete language learning, and there's much more of this as we move into P1. So P1 is, there's more of a structure in terms of the content of the learning, and the kinds of things you might be thinking about covering with your children or exploring with your children are topics like greetings in French, which they'll have done a bit of from nursery, colours, counting, age, name, how to say their name, how to say how are you, I'm fine, days of the week, body parts. And I've said counting there, and I've not specified how much, because within our planners we would say, for example, 1 to 10 for primary 1, but quite often children can go way beyond that, so there's not really a cap on this. It's just a kind of guideline, but you can go as far as they're able to go. So it's focused on listening and talking for P1. There's no reading and writing as part of the curriculum in P1 for languages. So they can focus on their literacy skills, their writing skills development, their reading and English. And it's not compromised at all by the use of another language in class, so don't worry about that. In fact, there's research that shows that it's actually enhanced by having other language experience. So you would be continuing to really use your language as part of games, songs, rhymes, repetitions, and then maybe thinking about sequencing with things as well. So learning the numbers through sequencing, the days through sequencing, so they wouldn't necessarily need to know what day it is, but they would begin to say the days in sequence. And that really can be used to mirror their learning in English as well. So it almost enhances what they're doing in their own language and deepens that learning a bit as well. Again, lots of exposure to listening to the language and beginning to produce the language themselves as well, but doing that at their own pace. So you would be modelling lots of that, letting them hear lots of it, but letting them to begin to produce it at their own pace. And building up the skills to be able to have a short conversation, to be able to say things about themselves, but through games and through activities. So lots of games that are focused around about question and answer. So for example, games with a response to ça va, or games with a response to tu t'appelles comment. So we'll look at an example of one of these games just now. So for example, if we're looking at the question, tu t'appelles comment? So what is your name? Tu t'appelles comment? Then what we would maybe get them to do in terms of instructions, we would say, asseyez-vous en cercle. Asseyez-vous en cercle. Okay, sit down in a circle. Asseyez-vous en cercle. Écoutez et répétez. Répétez, so repeat. Écoutez et répétez. Listen and repeat. Et tapez des mains. Tapez des mains. So they're going to listen, repeat, and clap their hands. And for this one, and I think actually adding in a wee clap, a wee rhythm for questions is a really good way to help the children remember it. And it's actually, you know, a lot of French questions have got quite a nice rhythm about them. So, tu t'appelles comment? Tu t'appelles comment? Tu t'appelles comment? Tu t'appelles comment? And you can be asking them to sit in a circle then, to clap and repeat the question. So, tapez des mains et répétez la question. You can add in la question, the question. So, and you can pass something around the circle as they're doing this. So, for example, a wee toy. And then whoever, if they did it 4 times, then whoever it lands on has to say their name. So we would say, tu t'appelles comment? Tu t'appelles comment? Tu t'appelles comment? Tu t'appelles comment? Bravo. Okay, and then whoever it would land on would say, they could all ask them together. So they could all say, tu t'appelles comment? To the person who's holding the toy or whatever it is. And they would then answer back, je m'appelle Sophie. Je m'appelle Tony. Je m'appelle Ahmed, or whatever their name is, okay? And it's quite nice to add an action to that as well that helps them to remember. So what I would usually do with this is I just pat myself. So, je m'appelle, and then their name. So, je m'appelle Tony. Je m'appelle Sophie, okay? And then to respond to that, the whole class can then say in their group all together, enchanté, okay, and add the person's name. So for example, enchanté Tony, enchanté Tony, and then Tony or whoever it is can shout back, enchanté tout le monde, enchanté tout le monde. And enchanté means pleased to meet you. And what I usually do when I do this is I give it a little wiggle, shake your shoulders. So enchanté, enchanté. And enchanté tout le monde would then be pleased to meet you, everybody. And then you can say, on continue, let's continue, on continue, and you just continue passing it around. And that's just a wee activity that's structured around about the repetition of the question with a rhyme, the repetition of different people being able to say their name. So in the same way each time, je m'appelle, and then enchanté, pleased to meet you, enchanté. And what that does is it begins to scaffold for the children, building up to being able to have a more independent conversation at a later stage. And they might not manage that until they get into P2, for example, but just to begin to build up the question and answer through your games and activities. And there you have your little sentences, your conversation frame that you can use around about that as well. Okay. You can also just get the children to move around about the class, chanting questions, asking the questions, and add in your clapping as well. You know, come up with your own rhymes, rhythms. Tu t'appelles comment? But just adding a wee rhythm like that is a really good way to help them remember it. Similarly with je m'appelle, if they can't remember the phrase, you can tap yourself and they'll remember how to say it. It really helps with recall as well. So just a quick recap then on some of the areas that we've looked at today. Then we've gone through various different classroom instructions you can use. And again, just to reiterate, you know, build these up bit by bit over time. So build it into your planning, make a plan for yourself, keep something beside you as a little aide-memoire, use lots of actions to help you, and encourage the children to join in and just build on as much as you can over time. Build up the skills in the children to be able to have simple conversations, and use your games and learning activities around about that structure. So use them for questions and answers so that the children are building up the confidence and the language to be able to answer questions more independently over time. songs, stories, poems, so lots of exposure to language for the children, and it's really good for letting them hear native speakers and things that are authentic resources as well, so the same songs and stories that children would be listening to in France. And then lastly, building in the opportunity for them to begin to explore, find out, experience a little bit of French culture as well. So on the East Lothian 1+2 Languages website, which is sites.google.com/edubuzz.org/1+2, if you go here, you'll be able to find a full framework for Primary 1, along with the support resources that I'd mentioned earlier for early years as well. So we'll just click here and watch this wee video. So if you click on French and then L2 French Learning Packs, and then in here you've got early years section, so songs and language. And that's the document that I mentioned earlier that has all the different bits of language with examples of songs and a little bit about the guidance as well. And then just underneath that on the main page, you'll find the PowerPoint with all the sound files to go along with it as well. So the songs are recorded in there, so you can go in and listen to them and don't have to sing them yourself if you can cope with listening to me sing them instead. So but they're all there, so you can download them and use them, and there that would be for P1 or for nursery. And the P1, the L2 framework that I mentioned as well, is also in that French L2 planning pack section, and within there you'll find a kind of breakdown by topics with your vocabulary of the kind of key learning that you would be covering throughout P1, learning outcomes and suggested activities, and then there's a blank space here for you to put in your own evaluations about the progress of the children. And the idea with this framework is that you can basically highlight what you've covered and then hand it on to the next class teacher. So as they move up the school into P2, you would hand this on with your notes in the evaluation column as well. So the kinds of things in P1 then: age, colours, 1 to 10, yes, no, please, thank you. And then we've kept a space in here for festivals as well. So if you want to cover things like Christmas, there's really nice festivals around about the Epiphany in France. So around about the 6th of January with La Galette de Roi, which is a nice time to bring in a little bit of food as well. And there's a Bienvenue en France package here as well, so welcome to France as well, so learning more about France in the country, and your classroom routines as well, of course. So all this is also available on the East Lothian 1+2 Languages website, so we'll just click this little screen record, so click on French, L2 French Learning Packs, and then if you scroll down, you'll find the P1 section where you have PowerPoints. So there's a PowerPoint that accompanies everything within that planning framework. So for example, if you go to Tutable Commande, which we just looked at a minute ago, so the activity that we went through I took from this planning pack. So everything's recorded within these. You've got notes on how to develop the learning, the vocabulary you need with sound files, flashcards, audio flashcards that you can use with your class, and then different activities that you can use. And there's one of those for each of those areas, including for the section on culture as well. So there's an example of the PowerPoint. So you go to enable content, and then when you play it as a slideshow, then you get the sound files with it as well. Which sounds a bit dodgy through the microphone and through the computer, but I promise you it sounds better than that in without this. So in terms of additional support, CILT's website is well worth a look. So CILT are the National Centre for Languages in Scotland, and they have a whole section on primary 1+2. So I would recommend having a look there for various resources. This is listed on the CILT website, but it's actually developed by the French Institute, who I mentioned previously. And this is their website, Culturtech. So it's the French resource website. And it's worth having a look for some of the CLIL resources. So CLIL is when it's learning languages across the curriculum. So this wee video basically shows where to go for this. So you go to CLIL Niveau Bleu, and then in here you've got different activities and things you can download. So you click on the name, so this is Math or Musique or whatever it is, and then you click on the arrow above it to download it. And it has different things that develop different areas of the curriculum, so it's worth a look if you're looking to maybe explore developing something around about music or maths or whatever it might be using French language. So I'll just show you a quick example of this. So this is for music, so singing a major scale and using the Eiffel Tower, so going up the Eiffel Tower to sing it and going down to sing it down the scale again, which is quite nice little example. And it has the French in there for you, and it's all recorded as well, so you have the audio files to go with that. Lastly, I'd also recommend having a look on the Education Scotland website. There's loads of good stuff on there in terms of planning materials, learning maps, exemplars on how you might plan 1+2 into your day, and that might be worthwhile looking at if you were thinking about putting together some kind of script for your day. You know, when are you going to bring in different parts of the language throughout your school day. I'd also recommend it for these short videos. So this is Gail Miller from the Borders, who some of you might recognise, and it's a wee video which shows her using a puppet in class with pupils to help them with questions and answers. So that's well worth a look as well. And lastly, yep, just to say everything else is on the East Lothian website, and if you have any questions, please just get in touch with me and let me know. Et merci. Au revoir.